welcome to You and Your Right, brought to you by Fortune Solicitors every Monday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. This evening's episode, we're trying to navigate to go into how someone who lives in the UK is able to make a successful naturalization application because that obviously people would understand. Those of us who live in the UK, they would understand that obviously is the ultimate level of immigration leave to remain. Obviously, you are now a national, you are now a citizen of the United Kingdom. We know that most of the times people would ask us to present to them specific topics. But with this one, I'm very happy that we'll be able to put this topic together because most people would always be lacking. We're only talking about live to remain. But when it comes to naturalization, that is where people might think that it is easy to go through the application. However, there are so many technicalities that you need to be aware of. This evening, we are not going to talk about how to make the application, but we're going to pinpoint to you certain technicalities that you need to be aware of if you are approaching making an application to naturalize yourself here in the UK. That is the reason why, or we always tell, or we always advise or admonish our viewers that when you come to this program or when you are watching this program, don't be selfish. Try and send the link to someone. Forward this video to your brother, your sister, your loved ones, because you might not know that individual might be at a point in their UK immigration life that they will require this information to be able to make a successful naturalization application. I'm joined in the studio by one and only one lawyer, Daniel Coy. He will introduce himself more. Then, after his introduction, we will go for a quick commercial break. And the reason for the commercial break is that it will give you the opportunity to be able to share this video, to share this broadcast to your loved ones. Lawyer Daniel, you are welcome.
Thank you very much, Lawyer Patrick, and thank you for the introduction. As Lawyer Patrick said, my name is Lawyer Daniel Coy, and a solicitor with Fosfor Solicitors. We've been practicing immigration law for a very long time. Before Fosfor Solicitors, we've been in this business for a while. In terms of the areas of specialty, we specialize in immigration and asylum applications. Within immigration and asylum applications, we deal with everything from entry clearance, which is visas from abroad, to appeals, to judicial reviews, to bail applications, detentions. We do everything immigration. Apart from immigration, we deal with employment matters. So if you have wrongful dismissal, unlawful dismissal, you have compromise agreements. These are things that we deal with, and even discrimination cases within the employment setting, we can handle it for you. We also deal with wills and probate. So, any probate matters that you may have regarding somebody who may have passed away and distributing of assets and all that, we can handle that for you as well. We also handle family matters. So when it comes to divorce matters, children matters, anything to do with non-molestation or that financial remedies, anything to do with family, we can handle it. So when we come on this program, you and your rights, we try to discuss topical issues, the questions that people want to be answered. That's what we are looking at in today's program. And I'm happy to be here to discuss naturalization process and how people can go about it without making the common mistakes that we normally see in our work of life. Our work life, yeah.
Thank you very much, Lawyer Danko, for that introduction. And as I said, we're just going to go for a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to delve into this particular topic. This is the time for you to share the broadcast, to share the video to loved ones. Where if you are in a group, you can also share this video to that group, because you never know. Maybe a group member is preparing to make a naturalization application. Is he or she aware of these pitfalls, these mistakes that they might do? Therefore, the application will not be successful. We're going to go for a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we will go into this topic thoroughly. You are watching You and Your Right, and it's brought to you by Fortress Solicitors. We're going to be right back. Welcome back. Thanks for your audience, your views, and everything that you've been doing for You and Your Right. If this is the first time you are watching us, we thank you for joining us, and we hope that you're going to join us every Monday. As we previously said, we are trying to delve into how to make a successful naturalization application in the UK. There are specific types of people who go through this naturalization process. If you are that individual, then please listen to this program. Don't go. People in the UK to stay, make specific types of applications. Then at a point in time, they qualify for naturalization. This is not British passport deliberation or topic that we are doing. We are talking about naturalization. People come to the UK because they are married, they go through the process, and they qualify for their naturalization. People also live here in the UK for some time, they also qualify for naturalization at the end. People also come from European countries, they also live here at a point in time, they qualify for naturalization. These are the people that we're going to talk about them. But as we know, in most applications that we make in the UK, there are requirements. You need to be qualified to make such an application before you can put the application in and await a successful outcome. So we always do. We are going to go through the requirements first, Then later on, as we are going through the requirement one by one, we will go into it into details and some of the things that probably you've not even thought about, or some of the things that you think they are not important, they are not relevant to the application that you are thinking of submitting. Maybe today you might think twice before you make the application. So we're going to go through the main requirements. We will go through what we say the residential requirement. Most at times, people would want to find out whether they qualify to make the application or not. So we're going to go through all this, and it's going to be one by one. But if time permits, we will go through into detail. So, Lawyer Dan, what are some of the main requirements? Some of the main requirements that everyone would think that, oh, if I'm this and that, then I qualify to make naturalization application.
Thank you very much, Lawyer Patrick. I must add before, or I must give a bit of a disclaimer that in this particular today's discussion, we are focusing our attention on Section 6 of the British Nationality Act. So, Section 6 is whereby people will normally make an application and the Home Office will grant a certificate of naturalization based on what we call a discretion. So it is not an entitlement. It's not something that you should think that you are normally entitled to, and it's your right. So when Lawyer Patrick asked what are the main requirements for making an application for registration, our focus here is under Section 6 of the British Nationality Act, and we are looking at some of the things that we are looking for when making an application. So before you make an application to naturalize, many people will have a few questions that they need to ask themselves, especially depending on the country of origin. So, before you think of naturalizing, we understand that you would have asked yourself those questions already because there are some countries that they do not allow for dual nationality. So, we would expect that you would have dealt with that because some people, too, once you apply, there might be tax implications and all that. In today's discussion, we will not be going to the pros and cons of taxes and all that. So that is something that you may have to consider before even thinking of making an application for naturalization. The main things that we look at when making an application for naturalization is are you of age, which is at least 18 years of, are you an adult? So have you turned 18 years? And that's very important. Do you have full capacity? Full capacity meaning somebody might be an adult, but the person might lack the mental capacity to make certain decisions. And under this section of the British Nationality Act, the person making that decision should have the mental capacity to be able to make that decision. So it is very, very, very key and very important requirement. And there have been people who have been refused, and that. And then you must meet residence requirements or if serving outside the UK in a crown service under the government of the UK. So there might be people who may be serving the government as service personnel, may be in the army, and may not be in the UK at the time, or may be in the foreign service, and for that reason may be affected. But even that, they will be considered as being legally resident in the UK. So the residence requirement, it's something very, 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 very important. And when we talk about the residence requirements, we will talk about the fact that you should have been in the UK the last 5 years before the application that you are going to make. You should have been in the UK for no more than, you shouldn't have been outside the UK for more than 450 days. That is very important. And the last 90 days that you will be making the application, we'll be looking at that. In fact, we'll be going into details because the residence requirement is quite detailed, and many people fall foul of the law based on residence requirements. So I think we will take time to delve into that aspect of the requirement. And then we'll talk about the good character requirement. Good character requirement is also very significant. Many people have not been able to successfully make applications simply because they've fallen foul of that rule. And there have been recent changes to the good character requirements, whereby your immigration status and all that. So we will go into that as well. So if you are joining us or you'll be joining us, make sure you stay tuned when we go into the good character requirement. There will be much to talk about at that aspect. Then we have the self being sufficient in the knowledge of English, Welsh, or Scottish language, and you are able to provide evidence to support that. So the requirement of English language is very key. What level of English requirement is required, like is needed for you to be able to make an application for naturalization. We will be discussing that as well. Then life in UK tests. Do you have enough knowledge of life in the UK? That is something that we will be talking about. Then you must intend to make the UK your main home. Believe it or not, there are some people who may be planning to obtain naturalization, British citizenship, but they do not intend to live in the UK, or they don't intend to make the UK their main home. So that is something that we will be looking at. How do you establish, how do you show to the home office of the official who is making a decision that this is exactly what you'll be doing? So, Lawyer Patrick, these are some of the main requirements that we are looking at when it comes to these applications for naturalization under Section 6. Of course, since we made mention of the residency requirements, I think it's important we delve into that into detail, because that is one of the areas that many people fall foul of the law. And in fact, if you are listening to us and you intend to make an application for naturalization at some point, it's important you are made aware of the requirement, because most of the time, the time that you will be planning to make the application, you would have made a mistake already. So it's one of those aspects of the whole process that it's important you get it right, and at that time you may not be able to correct it at that stage. So, Lawyer Patrick, tell us briefly what needs to be done in terms of people meeting the residency requirement for naturalization applications.
Thank you. Thank you. As Lawyer Dan just said, this particular requirement, people take it for granted, but it's a requirement that is either you pass or you fail it. So you have to be aware of, and all of them comes with numbers and date. So, and as we always say on this program, we just do this for educational purposes. If you need further details, if you need proper calculation, then you need to call us. Our numbers are on the screen. You can have initial consultation. If you want us to assist you in making a naturalization application to you, we are able to do that. So the residency requirement is very crucial, and it comes with date, timings as well. So when we talk about dates, it is not the date that you left the UK and you are coming back. It's a full day. So when you hear me talk about dates or months, it is the full day and the full month. If it is 90 days, if it's 450 days, if it's 270 days, all those days that I'll be talking about, it's not when you left the UK and when you are coming in, it's the full day. So that is what the days are. Just let's go through it systematically. When we started the program, or when we were doing the introduction, I made mention of ways that people can naturalize. I just want to categorize this residency requirement into two categories. One is category for people who, through marriage, they will qualify for their naturalization, and the others too, who through maybe long residence or whatever it is, they are able to qualify for naturalization. So when it comes to the residence requirement, you have to make sure that you satisfy the residence requirement. First of all, in the last 12 months, so now we're going to go to the people who are not married through that they want to obtain their naturalization. So in the last 12 months of your application, you shouldn't be outside the UK more than 90 days. So if you are making an application today, you go back 1 year and you calculate full days. If it is more than 90 days, you need to seek legal advice. If it is more than 90 days, you need to seek legal advice. Again, if in the last 5 years you qualify for naturalization, before you make that application, in the last 5 years, this is just residence requirement. It might have been that you've been on a particular route into naturalization. It could have been that you based on your family rights, you based on your private life or anything. But we are only talking about in the last 5 years before you make the application. You shouldn't be outside the UK for more than 450 days. So, if you are making an application for naturalization and for some reason, because you had your indefinite leave to remain prior to making the naturalization application, and as we all know, if you've got your indefinite leave to remain, you can live outside the UK for up to about 2 years continuously. You will not have any issues. In the following, by the end of the second year, you can come in and go back. There are other people who also go out from the UK because they've got businesses, they've got projects and everything that they're doing. But what we need to be aware of is that in the last 5 years, if you are thinking of submitting the application today, go back in the last 5 years and calculate the number of days that you've spent outside the UK. If it is more than 450 days, please, you need to seek legal advice because that application can be refused. Now, let's come to people who, through marriage, they've they are qualified to make naturalization application. Theirs are a bit different. If you are married or through marriage you are making or you qualify to make a naturalization application, obviously you to the 90 days will come in, but because in your specific circumstance, for the last 3 years that you made the application, you have to be in the UK, or in fact, no, you shouldn't be outside the UK more than 270 days. So, you within 3 years, we will go into it, the people who qualify, because those who through marriage they qualify for naturalization, the years of qualification is a bit different. We will go into that. And those through not being married, they are making application for naturalization. Their leave or the number of years that they need to stay in the UK is different. So when it comes to the married people, in the last 3 years, theirs is not 5 years. In the last 3 years, before they make the application, you are making an application today, you count back 3 years. You shouldn't be absent for more than 270 days. If you are more than 270 days, you need to seek legal advice because it is restrictive. You are making application because you want to show to the home office that you want to make UK your home. You want to make here your permanent home. Therefore, you have to show them that you really, really want to live here in the UK. Again, when it comes to another resident general requirement, there shouldn't be any time limit on your leave, especially in the last 12 months of your application. Say, for example, you are making an application for naturalization. Your leave to remain, there shouldn't be any limit. In fact, what that means is that you should have a minimum of an indefinite leave to remain in the UK before you are able to make an application for naturalization in the UK. That is what they mean by no time limit on your application in the 12 months preceding your naturalization application. And of course, there shouldn't be any breach of immigration laws before you make the application, because there will be some restrictions. There are some that you might even be banned for a specific time before you be qualified to make naturalization application, because there is a breach of immigration law which will prevent you from making that application for naturalization. Now, then, if there is something that I've missed out in the residency requirement, I'll be happy for you to share it with our viewers.
Thank you very much, Leah Patrick. Not much to add to that, apart from the fact that there might be other areas that I also want to touch on briefly. In fact, when it comes to the residence requirement, there are technical absences that the Home Office may look at. So, when somebody is detained under the Mental Act, or somebody is detained because the person has been convicted of an offense, that might be regarded as a technical absence. There might be people who may be outside the country because of exceptional reasons. Maybe their job would have sent them out. There are certain things that the Home Office may consider. So if you are thinking of making such an application and you any of those things apply, I will recommend that you speak to a solicitor as soon as possible. Don't just assume that they will understand and they will make an application or they will consider your application in your favor. At this stage, I would like to also look at applications that may be done, because you talked about applications being done with married partners and all that. There might be people who might want to include their children in such applications, before we go to the other issues. And it's important for me to say that it is not possible for children to naturalize to become British nationals. What British children will normally happen is they will need to make a registration. So when an application is done by an individual and decides to include the children in the application, the Home Office have been instructed to look at whether that child is already maybe entitled to British nationality, or they might be have to make a registration. So these are something that the Home Office will look at, and if that is the case, they will advise you in writing. When I was making my initial statement or explanation regarding the eligibility requirements for naturalization, I talked about having capacity, having full capacity. When we talk about capacity, it's important for people to understand that the Home Office is not there to refuse people who may have maybe disabilities or a few mental challenges. What the Home Office is talking about is whenever you are considering such an application, the person have must be aware of what is happening to them. So it is very rare for people to not be, or for people to be refused under these requirements. However, it's also important for the Home Office to be able to waive capacity requirements for certain group of people. So we will talk about the fact that when that requirement is waived for some people, they don't even have to go through the oath and the pledges and all that. When that comes with, once you have been granted, when we get to that stage, we will be talking about that. And then the issue to do with good character requirements. Lawyer Patrick, Do you want us to, or you want to go into that, or you would like me to discuss that? Because the good character requirement is one of the major things that do affect a lot of people. So it's important we talk about that into detail, because many people may have challenges because of a conviction they had, because of their immigration status they may have not been able to meet, and all that. So, if you just talk about it briefly, and I'll add a bit more meat to that aspect, because the good character requirement is quite important, and that is another aspect that we have understood over the years that many people fall foul when making application for naturalization. So, tell us, what are the fallouts, or what are the things people need to look out for when it comes to good character requirements?
Okay, thank you very much, Lawyer Dan. Good character requirement is a crucial requirement that people need to be aware of, because this particular requirement, most people fall short of it, not because they want to, it's simply because they don't know. That is why it's very important that we go into this particular aspect very, 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 very intensively. Because of that, we're going to go for a quick commercial break. If you've not been able to share this video to someone, please, this is the time for you to share this video to your loved ones, because that person is making an application to the Home Office maybe this week, but they don't even know that because of them even being an overstayer, for example, or even being bankrupt, that individual might not be able to make a successful nationalization application. You are watching You and Your Right, and it's brought to you by Fortress Solicitors. We're going to go for a quick commercial break. Share the video to your loved ones, and we will continue swiftly when we come back. Thank you. Welcome back. You're still watching You and Your Right, and it's brought to you by Photo Solicitors. Before we went for the commercial break, we were going to talk about good character as a requirement when you are making a when you want to make a successful application. Someone will be thinking, I have been in the UK for a long time. According to the rules, when after I get my indefinite leave to remain, they will tell me to wait for a specific time, then I will make my naturalization. Why is it that I have to be a person of good character before I will be able to be granted my naturalization. The British Nationality Act 1981 stipulates that before you will be granted or you'll be allowed to naturalize, you have to be a person of good character. That's all. That is what they say. And by them saying that you have to be of good character, when you go into the policy guidance, they have unlimited, and in fact, they always continue to add things or behaviors that they deem as not of good character. Therefore, they can even refuse you this particular application. As Lawyer Dan said initially, this application for naturalization is not a right, it's discretionary. The Secretary of State can decide you qualify for every aspect of this naturalization application, but you are not going to be granted because of you being a person of not good character. You might be involved in terrorism. You might be a persistent
Offender.
um, criminal. You might be someone who is deceptive. You might have even been an overstayer, and the Home Office or the Secretary of State will say that you are deemed to be a person who hasn't got good character. And even your finances can even prevent you from making a successful application when this particular requirement of good character hits you. So, Leonard, I know this is just an introduction. I know you're going to go into details, some of the things that people need to be aware of, the band that is involved, the dates that is involved, and everything. So, they are saying good character.
Uh,
You have to.
yeah, yeah. I think when it comes to good character requirement is quite very detailed, and there are a number of convictions, a number of sentences, a number of things that may contribute or may help the Home Office to decide whether to grant you or not to grant you. And one of the things that we talk about is whether your offense is it being spent, has it not been spent, when was the time it happened, what factors came into play, where do you have any convictions? Do you have any immigration issues and all that? So it's very, very, very important we understand this aspect. And when people want to make an application and they have any form of conviction or even pending uh, cases, criminal cases in the courts, they need to speak to a professional to investigate further to see whether they can apply and qualify. Because the last thing you want is to pay your naturalization fees to the Home Office and you being refused simply because maybe it was just left with 1 year for you to make an application and you were not aware of it. As you said, issues to do with fixed penalties, failure to pay your taxes, issues to deal with civil orders and all that. These are things that can go into. In fact, Lawyer Patrick, when we want to discuss the good character aspects of this matter, we will not be leaving here today because that alone is about 57 pages of the Home Office guidance. That should tell you how detailed it is, and we don't really have much time here. So we will leave it as that. But it's also important for people to note or take notice of what we call the citizenship ban under the Illegal Migration Act 2023. This will apply where an applicant required to leave to enter the United Kingdom, but enter the United Kingdom without leave to enter, or by deception, or in breach of a deportation order. So, if somebody enters the UK, okay, and it's in breach, or he was required to get leave to remain or leave to enter, and the person did not do that, or the person enters the UK without a valid entry clearance, if required, that person will have what we call a citizenship ban. So the person can never be able to make an application for citizenship if the entrance was after 7th March 2023. This is something that we need to be aware of. So, under the citizenship ban, it does not matter how many years it takes, you can never obtain your British nationality. And this is something that I need to be able to discuss or tell people before we move on to the next aspect of our discussion. So, without taking much time, I think we will go into the applications for British citizenship by EU nationals. Lawyer Patrick, the EU nationals are people who also are
I
quite a
think,
lot.
Lawyer Dan, this particular because as you all know, the Illegal Migration Act is I think it was assented to last year, isn't it?
Yeah,
In
that's
was
correct.
it December? Yeah. So not many people are aware of it. People think that, oh, you will be banned for 10 years. So
Mm,
they just wait. Then, when they are legal for 10 years, they will be able to make an application. But from what you are telling us now, if someone illegally entered the UK, or there isn't any evidence of him or that individual coming to the UK, you are saying that the person can never, there isn't any 10-year ban, there isn't any 20-year ban, there isn't, never, that individual can never become British citizen. Please, can
that's
you
correct.
explain that bit? Because it's very crucial.
Okay, so under the citizenship ban criteria, under the Migration Act, Illegal Migration Act 2023, the this will before we come to that, it's important we appreciate the fact that a few changes have been made for citizenship. So first and foremost, the people who entered into the UK illegally and who have been here for 5 years will normally not be able to, who can make an application for British citizenship. So it's no longer 10 years anymore. So you can have your somebody maybe calls and says, "Oh, a lawyer, I had my first 2.5 years about 6 years ago, and then I switched to the 5 year route, and now I've managed to get my indefinite leave to remain a year ago. When do I have to make an application for naturalization?" Previously, we will tell them that they need to wait for 10 years before they can do that. Now they can make the application after 5 years. It's not a problem. Okay. But the citizenship ban is something that people need to pay attention to. That's the key thing because the Illegal Migration Act introduced what we call automatic ban. There's nothing you can do about it. So if somebody enters the UK without leave to enter, or with leave to enter that was obtained by deception. So this is the key aspect, which is normally it puts in brackets, but it's very important. If you entered without leave to enter, or you entered with leave to enter but obtained it by deception, and the Home Office finds out, there's no way you can ever be a British citizen. If you also enter the UK in breach of a deportation order, you will not be able to get British citizenship under any circumstance. So somebody might ask, how does this happen? There are a number of EU nationals who may have obtained a deportation order, but because of how porous the borders were for the EU nationals previously, it was easy for those people to enter the UK without any problem. So that person might already be here, even though the person has a deportation order. What the Home Office is saying is that such a person can never obtain citizenship. It doesn't matter when and how under the Illegal Migration Act 2023. We also have people without valid entry clearance if required, or without a valid electronic travel authorization if one is required. So for the EU nationals who now do not have or do not need visas to come into the country and will normally enter, but they need to obtain valid electronic travel authorization. If they don't do so, then this might be an issue. Once you enter the UK on or after 7th of March 2023, this is very key because there might be some people or there might be a few people who will be in the system that this will not apply to them simply because they entered the UK before 7th of March 2023. So if you enter the UK with deception, you enter the UK without a valid visa before 7th of March 2023, then this particular act will not apply to you. So that is the difference, or that's where the problem is, or that's where people might think, okay, that's why I'm not aware of this particular act, but this little act is there and ready to penalize a lot of people. You will also not qualify if you entered Jersey, Guernsey, or Isle of Man or an overseas territory in the same way. So it does not matter whether you came to the mainland UK territory or you went to Gibraltar or you went somewhere else, then that's what is going to happen. There is an exemption to the citizenship ban where treating a person as ineligible for citizenship will breed the United Kingdom's obligations and Russia. This means that we will need to consider the application, although not necessarily granted. So, if the Home Office is telling their staff that for you the application to refuse you will breach your human rights, they should consider it, but not necessarily grant it. And then it is unlikely that they will see any applications where this applies for some time. This is because a person who enters on or after 7th of March 2023 will not be able to apply for naturalization for so many years. You understand? So those people will not be able to apply for naturalization for the next 5, 6, 10 years before they will think of applying. So the reason why this aspect of the law is currently not out there, it's not common, it's not being published, it's not being talked about, is because of it. And we believe as time goes on, people will be made aware of it, and we need to start talking about it even more for people to understand what we are looking at. So this is where we are when it comes to the citizenship ban, when we are talking about naturalization applications.
Okay, thank you very much, Lawyer Dan, for that explanation. Prior to that, we wanted to talk about EU citizens who would also want to naturalize in the UK, because there are so many people who qualify for naturalization, but there are a few things that we would just want to alert them on. And in the beginning of the program, Lawyer Dan mentioned that people need to be aware that not every country will allow you to naturalize as British citizen, because they don't allow dual nationality. So if you are EU citizen and you are thinking of naturalizing here in the UK because you qualify, you satisfy the requirements that we've mentioned earlier, please try and find out from your country whether your country allows dual nationality. UK allows dual nationality. That is why you're able to naturalize, although you might be a national of another country. So, EU citizens, they are able to make an application to naturalize here in the UK if they satisfy the requirements that we've mentioned earlier on. And they make a valid application to the Home Office. It is not automatic. They have to make a valid application to the Home Office, satisfy all the requirements that we've mentioned earlier. Before November 2015, EU citizens were able to make naturalization application without first proving that they have evidence that they live here permanently, or what we call permanent residents. After 2015, any EU citizen who would want to make an application for naturalization would have to have been granted settlement or permanent residence in the UK prior to making the naturalization application. Because if you don't do that, automatically your application will not be considered because you have not satisfied that requirement. Previously, when the time comes and you feel like you want to make an application as EU citizen, you are able to gather your document to confirm that you live here for 5 years or 6 years, then you submit your application based on the fact that you've acquired that right of residence, permanent residence. Therefore, you qualify for your naturalization. But since 2015 November, you have to have applied and be granted residence, permanent residence or settlement before you are able to make application for naturalization. This is something that EU citizens need to be aware. I am yet to confirm whether they have to do the pre-settlement or the settlement. Lawyer Dan, if you can share more light on that aspect. Now that the EU citizens, they have to obviously make an application for the EU settlement scheme. I'm not sure
Mhm.
whether they have to be granted the EU settlement scheme or the evidence of permanent residence is okay.
Okay, no, it's when there is a discretion to disregard immigration time restrictions, the 12 months application. So if somebody is making an application as an EU national, there might be a discretion, but we always advise that you should have evidence of having acquired settled status 12 months prior to making the application. But the Home Office can have discretion and they can waive some of these things. So that's something very important. And this is even very important or an issue because of the recent High Court judgment handed down on the 21st of December 2022 that found the withdrawal agreement residence right of an individual with pre-settled status does not expire for failure to make a second application to the EU settlement scheme. So from September 2023, people with limited leave to remain or pre-settled status under the EU settlement scheme will not have their status automatically extended. And what that means is that when somebody makes an application for naturalization, the Home Office or the UK, the Secretary of State, is not supposed to really make inquiries as to whether the individual has been in the UK lawfully or unlawfully. So there is a bit of technicalities over there. But of course, because of the funds required when you are making an application for it's a lot of money that you have to pay for. So sometimes with these requirements, we normally will say if you can, make sure you have your pre-settled status and you should have been free from any immigration control for 12 months before you make the application. But there is room for people to be able to make such applications without any issues. So that is something that I want to make clear in today's presentation. I know time is fast spent, and there are so many other aspects that we wanted to discuss, but we will not be able to discuss. In fact, citizens of the Irish citizens who will normally be able to make application for naturalization, the ways and means that that can be done. We also need to talk about the requirements to make the UK your future intention requirements, the principal home to be in the UK. So if you want to make an application, we talk about the fact that you have to make UK your principal home. And I might can explain it than what the titles reads. You should intend to make the UK your principal home. So don't make an application before and then maybe the Home Office will discover that, oh, or you say in your application that once I get my British citizenship, I want to get it so that I can travel to my home country and stay there for more than 2 years period. You'll be surprised. You might think nobody will say that, but you'll be shocked somebody might end up saying that, and that can cause issues for the person. And of course, certain things for the EU applicants that we haven't discussed about the comprehensive sickness insurance and all that. So there are so many aspects of naturalization applications that we cannot fit within an hour. And we will always indulge people to engage the services of a professional to advise them. For instance, we today's discussion has focused mainly on registration under Section 6. We have not talked about we've talked about naturalization and Section C, which gives the Home Office the discretion to grant British nationality for people, but we have not talked about the other aspects. People who can register because they've been here as children and become adults, people who have been born here. So many others. There are even people who may be outside the UK and may qualify to naturalize that we have not discussed. So there are so many aspects of naturalization law that we will think that we cannot put within the what that we have here. But of course, if you have any questions on this issue and you want to discuss with us, you want to send us a message, please do so. Our offices are open 9 to 5, 9:30 to 5:30 Monday to Friday, and of course we offer free consultation. So if you are not too clear about any of the statements we've made on this program and you want to give us a call, just get in touch and we'll be able to discuss it into detail. So, Lawyer Patrick, before we go away, if you can give us your final words on some of the things that, of course, we've not been able to discuss in today's session that you feel is very important for people to understand, let them know, and then we will bring today's show to an end.
Yes, as you rightly said, it's just for educational purposes. Time is not on our side. Try and share the video to others to also benefit from it. If you need specific advice pertaining to your specific circumstance, give us a call, your first initial consultation. We are not going to charge you anything. Speak to us. And remember that every Monday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., we come your way with topical issues. In fact, it's not only immigration. We talk about family, we talk about wealth, we talk about employment and other topics that might interest you. So try and make a date with us next week, Monday, and we might come your way with a topic that might benefit you. Lawyer Dan, thanks for also joining me this evening for this program. And hopefully, we will meet again next week to talk about something else. You have been watching You and Your Rights, and it's brought to you by Fortuo Solicitors. Thank you for watching.